Now, it's important to note, Harlan actually does have 3 main deck copies of Spell Pierce as well as 2 Spell Snare. If he's on the play, he has 5 cards that can protect him from a turn 1 Chalice of the Void, 3 cards that can protect him from a turn 1 Blood Moon. But he's on the draw here. Chrome Mox from Beland. Going to start things off here with a turn 1 Goblin Rabble Master. And Harlan's going to need a Source of Plowshares or a Force of Will in a hurry.
Yeah, Ancient Tomb will knock him to 18. Cast that one. We'll see what Fear has for action on that. Rabble Master, it's really powerful in turn 1. Maybe a sigh of relief over a Chalice of the Void, but it's still pretty dang good. Fear goes to 19 off that Goblin token.
Right, and even though Harlan actually has a Tundra in hand, he's going to choose to fetch out a basic Plains here. This is a nod to a follow-up Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon. That can be detrimental to his development if that fetch line gets locked down. And it looks like he's got the Swords of Plowshare here to take care of that Goblin Rabble Master. Let's see if Beland can recoup after going effectively all in on the first turn on this Goblin Rabble Master.
Yes, those Plowshares takes care of that. The Goblin token's left behind, but there's some work to do here. Just Goblin token's not going to do it. What does Beland have for a follow-up?
Now, one of my favorite additions to these Mono Red Prison decks is the implementation of 4 full copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance. And here we see it from Nicholas Beland. The shields are effectively down for Harlan Fear, and you can see just how powerful this deck can be with an opener with a 2-mana land and something like Chrome Mox.
Yeah, turn 1, 3-mana spell, turn 2, 4-mana spell. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's like Tron levels of mana generation in the early turns here. And Harlan looks like he has just Source of Plowshares and a bunch of cantrips in hand. Doesn't look like he has too many ways even in his deck at all to deal with the resolved Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Outside of attacking it with something like True Name Nemesis or Delver of Secrets, it's going to pose quite the problem for his deck over the next few turns.
So Ponder reveals 2 Delver of Secrets. You mentioned that Fear fetched up this basic Plains to play around Blood Moon, but relevantly he can't just cast these Delvers this turn because the Plains is untapped. You know, Chandra has to -3 to deal with a creature. Casting Delver this turn might have been very good, but he just has to pass from here.
Yeah, and here comes a Blood Moon as the next play from Nicholas Beland. And he's just trying to disrupt Harlan as much as possible given what he has in hand. And he has the ability to take up for mana here on Chandra as well, cast something like Stratosphere, but chooses Blood Moon and casts Goblin Rabble Master, but Harlan at the ready with that Swords of Plowshares.
Yeah, Swords of Plowshares does catch that one. Just the Goblin token attacking again. Fear to 14. Will go his way.
All right, Delver of Secrets here, but that Tundra producing red mana, can't play the second copy of Delver of Secrets, and is staring down the barrel of a Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Nicholas Beland takes this opportunity to minus on that Delver of Secrets to eliminate that potential transform and pressure of the Planeswalker.
And another tap here is Magus of the Moon. It's really just a 3-mana 2/2. It's a Grey Ogre. There's already a Blood Moon on the table, but it's a body anyway.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's in the driver's seat. Now, Harlan here can transform this Delver of Secrets, though, and apply a bit of pressure to the Chandra, but there's still some damage coming across. The 2 from the Chandra, the 3 from the attacks. And the next turn, if he transforms and doesn't have a follow-up blocker or some sort of removal spell, he's going to take a lot more damage over the next few turns.
Chandra pluses. Beland has no interest in casting that Chrome Mox. That did 2 to Fear, and an attack for 3 bumped him to 8. Chalice of the Void on 1 is the follow-up. Harlan's going to check for that Delver of Secrets. No reveal, just has to draw for turn.
Yeah, and not hitting the transform there means even if he transforms next turn, he's not going to be able to take out that Chandra, Torch of Defiance. The Chalice of the Void's locking down all of his 1-mana spells. The Blood Moon's locking down a lot of his blue mana. And even though you're seeing right now, Harlan has a ton of basics in his deck, he has 2 in play. And that Blood Moon is literally shutting him down completely.
Chandra's going to plus again. You know, the Delver did 1 to it, but it's just kind of out of range. It'll plus and do 2 to Harlan before an attack for 3. And Fiery Confluence, that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah, Fiery Confluence, just this insanely powerful card for the Mono Red Prison deck. It does it all. Can destroy some artifacts if necessary. Most of the time, it's going to be sweeping up creatures from Monster Mentor or Young Pyromancer. But to close the game, you can just go right upstairs for 6 damage.
Yeah, it's a card that destroys artifacts, can do damage to creatures or players, as you see it just doing 6 damage to Harlan Fear. And players are going to go to sideboards here. Harlan's going to need some help. In the sideboard, he has 2 Containment Priest, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Disenchant, 2 Back to Basics, a Celestial Purge, an Engineered Explosives, a Council's Judgment, a True Name Nemesis, and a Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
All right, from Harlan's side, I think you want the Disenchant. So you need to be able to take care of the Trinisphere, the Blood Moon, as well as the Chalice of the Void. Those are the early cards that kind of validate playing all these 3-mana 2/2s. Once you lock your opponent out, you just want to close the game quickly. But without those, Harlan's able to pretty easily take care of those 3-mana 2/2 creatures. Now, aside from that, I think you want the Celestial Purge to knock out Chandra as well as Blood Moon. Same thing for Council's Judgment. I would probably bring in an Injure Explosives because it's basically a 2-mana answer to Chalice of the Void, as well as potentially a bunch of Goblin tokens. And then the True Name Nemesis and the Gin Ally of Zendikar are a bit heavy on the white and the blue mana, so I'm not sure you bring those in, but they're certainly fine threats if you can stabilize in the early turns.
And over on Beland's side of thing, the sideboard's a little bit more consolidated. You have 4 Leyline of the Void, 3 Scab Clan Berserker, 3 Sulfur Elemental, 2 Sorceress Spyglass, 2 Abrade, and 1 Ensnaring Bridge. That's the 3rd copy.
Yeah, Ensnaring Bridge is actually quite strong against all forms of Delver. There's a chance that Beland actually brings that in. Notably, every time he draws a card, he actually gets to unlock all those Goblin tokens that his creatures make, so the Ensnaring Bridge doesn't really affect him all that much, and is quite strong at buying him time against Delvers, things like True Name Nemesis, and even Batterskull tokens. So I don't mind the Ensnaring Bridge here. The Abrade may come in if he expects Stoneforge Mystic. He didn't see one in game 1, but he probably expects it because he did see Basic Plains. There's a chance it comes in to help take care of one of those pesky equipment that might come down. But other than that, he doesn't have a whole lot for this matchup. Leyline of the Void's an anti-graveyard card. Berserker is like an anti-storm card. Sulfur Elemental helps take care of things like Death and Taxes, as well as Monster and Mentor, which Harlan doesn't have. And then Sorcerer Spyglass is mostly for things like Thespian Stage or Hexmage and things like that.
Yeah, so we are broadcasting live here at twitch.tv/SCG Tour, and we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our program. We have quarterfinal voting coming up, so we're getting down to the top 8. We're going to show you all the matches that will be played there in the top 8, and if you subscribe, you get to vote for which one you want to see.
Yeah, for $5 a month, or $4.99 rather, you can join the feature match area. On top of that, you don't just get to skip all the commercials. What you also get is a host of sweet emojis, one of which is a roll tide. That's a me. It's pretty great. So you get that as well as a custom badge, and you get to help decide the quarterfinals each and every time we cut to the quarterfinals here on the SCG Tour. Make sure to join the feature match area today.
Yeah, really cool benefits for subscribing there, and we would very much appreciate if you did. So Harlan Fear, I believe, did keep on 7. He's on the play here. Or rather, he's scrying. There's some mulligans on both sides, it seems to be.
Yeah, and I think it's fairly common for the Delver deck to mulligan in this matchup just because there's a bunch of 7-card hands that just get stone cold destroyed by a Chalice of the Void or a Blood Moon on the first turn. And Nicholas Beland has an explosive start here with Ancient Tomb into Chrome Mox and a turn 1 Magus of the Moon. Does Harlan have an answer?
And minimally, he's got to crack this Flooded Strand. You see him do that.
Now, he can get basic planes here, and he looks like he has both Swords of Plowshares and Celestial Purge. I'm guessing he's going to be using Swords of Plowshares, but he might not even care that much about the Magus of the Moon. If he has an island in hand, he kind of just operates without worrying about it too much. But with a Stoneforge Mystic as the play on the following turn, this is a prime spot for him to use Plow into Stoneforge and get some pressure going.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. There was a Swords of Plowshares. Here is the Stoneforge Mystic. That's going to drum up Batterskull, put that one in the hand. And he has basic planes as well, so should be able to get that one online pretty quickly in a fairly solid position, though here is Ensnaring Bridge for Beland.
Yeah, and this is a card we kind of expected. There's 2 in the main deck, but 1 more in the sideboard as a means of buying you a lot of time. Your creatures can attack through the Ensnaring Bridge, as well as using Chandra Torch of Defiance or something like Hazoret the Fervent to deal your opponent damage with the Ensnaring Bridge on the battlefield. Now, the Azorius Delver deck does have access to some Disenchants, some Council Judgments, can even use things like Jason the Mind Sculptor to win through an Ensnaring Bridge, but it's going to be pretty tough.
Basic Island for Fear, now online with both colors of basics. We go back Beland's way. He's going to pitch a Simian Spirit Guide and attempt a Chandra Torch of Defiance here. Fear will respond with Brainstorm.
I just threw up in my mouth a little. He brainstormed and found Force of Will, but no other blue card. So the Chandra gets to resolve. Luckily, he does have access to a Celestial Purge, so he's not going to get stone cold beat up. But I don't even think he has a fetch land to reset the top of his deck.
Yeah, that can be rough. The Chandra pluses, that exiles Chalice of the Void. That'll deal 2 to Harlan, and he will take the end step to put that Batterskull onto the battlefield.
Just a little zone cleanup here is moving the Magus of the Moon to the Exile zone. I don't think Nicholas has any ulterior motives. But a disenchant here on that ensnaring bridge allows him to take down that Chandra, and he still has access to Celestial Purge in hand. Wow.
Yeah. And the second Stoneforge Mystic finds Umezawa's Jite. Really set up well here as Fear.
Yeah, just hitting him on all fronts. Knocked away his protection card in a snaring bridge. You know, playing Goblin Rattlemaster here is actually a detriment. Every Goblin token has to attack into the Germ and gain 4 life. Now, he might have been a heads-up player enough to cast that post-combat, but at the same time, it's not a very common interaction and one that honestly is mostly irrelevant at this juncture. Now, both players here Nicholas Beland here just looking for a way to claw back into the game. But Harlan Fear just in great shape. Spell Pierce at the ready to protect from a Fiery Confluence. There it is.
Yeah, the Fiery Confluence last turn might have been something pretty significant, though it is just getting Spell Pierced here. That Goblin Rattlemaster does not match up well against Batterskull.
No, it does not.
Here's Umezawa's Jite coming in. Fear very firmly in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and there was a missed trigger, but Beland and Fear recognized afterwards. The Goblin token is a must generate, and then the Batterskull can block cleanly, gain 4 more life, and then obviously has Vigilance, so can attack, gets 2 counters with Umezawa's Jite, and this game is all but over.
Yeah, Jite on the Germ. It's all charged up, ready to go, and Beland has seen enough. These players are going to go to game number 3 here.
It's kind of funny. You don't often have Goblin Rattlemaster tokens being forced to attack into a Batterskull, but I tell you what, it feels pretty good when it happens.
No kidding. Yeah, it's one of those situations, Beland's deck, it is a little bit greedy in the mana department. You know, it's mono red, but also Simian Spirit Guides, stuff like, you know, Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders. It's going to be tough to get your mana established.
Right.
You know, all this stuff that's a one-shot. You know, when you're pitching Simian Spirit Guide, sometimes it can be worse than a mountain. You saw there was a really big window for him to have Fiery Confluence against Batterskull and 2 Stormforge Mystic.
Right, and but here's the thing, though. Even if he does Fiery Confluence, I believe he can only deal 3 to creatures, so it doesn't actually clear up the Batterskull Germ token, and that follow-up Umezawa's Jite can equip an attack and start doing a lot of damage over the course of the next few turns. I mean, that game was really just all about Harlan being on the plate, being able to fetch up that plains, allowed him not only to check the early Goblin Rattlemaster, but also, allowed him to kill the Magus of the Moon with the Swords and Plowshares. And then he just changed that into a very aggressive start with Stoneforge Mystic and kind of rode that to victory over the next few turns.
For Harlan Fear, he did win the Legacy Classic in Baltimore with this deck. He played 10 opens last year, didn't manage to pick up a top 8 there, though he does have 5 top 8s all time with 2 wins. You know, that classic plaque already this season. He's looking to run it back and pick up a top 8 and a win this weekend as well.
Yeah, Harlan Fear, just a long-time mainstay on the SCG Tour. I didn't actually realize he was so young. He's been such a good player for such a long time. I would assume that he's closer to my age, and he's actually closer to Jonathan Rossum's age, which is crazy. I remember the first time I met Harlan, he actually was growing out his hair for Locks for Love. He had a mane, a beautiful, long head of hair, and I was super jealous. And then one day he just shows up almost bald. I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, donated charity. I'm like, oh, dude, you're the best.
Yeah, Harlan's super rad. And he is very bright. He's a very good player. There's a funny phenomenon that a lot of the grinders refer to, though, you know, when you're so good, so smart, sometimes you believe in a small sample size, you end up registering a bad deck you believe is better than it is. Mm-hmm. And Harlan is he has a reputation for recommending players play decks that are not quite up to snuff. They started referring to that as getting Harlaned.
That is rude.
I've heard that a few times this weekend, and I laugh a little bit harder every time.
So how many people got Harlan with Azorius Delver this weekend?
Quite a few.
Yeah, well, I know that Harlan here is on the cusp of top 8, so it can't be that bad. His deck here performed quite well in Game 2. Let's see if he can replicate that success.
Well, Fear is trying to take it back. He's trying to make getting Harlan the good thing.
All right. All right, looks like Beland here is on a mulligan. Let's see if his 6 is any better than his 7. The card economy here from Mono Red Prison side is not a huge downside on the moles. You know, you have cards that can effectively act as 2, 3, even 4 for 1s or win the game by themselves. But a turn 1 Trinisphere, if Harlan doesn't have Force of Will, whoo, baby, this is going to be a tough one.
Well, we're going to hang out here for a bit. Flooded Strand for Fear.
He's got time, and that's important because Nicholas Beland didn't have a solid source of red mana to follow up, just a City of Traders. But a Blood Moon coming down here just a turn too late. Harlan's going to go get Island and Plains, and he's going to be well set up to start casting spells next turn, even through that Trinisphere.
Yeah, the 2 fetches in response that makes that Blood Moon not very good. You would have much preferred to see a Rabble Master there, honestly.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, Harlan could just like take the 1 damage and then untap and then just cast something like Swords to Plowshares and be certainly fine with the outcome. Now, for 3 mana here, what does he decide to deploy?
Ooh, an actual 3 mana spell, True Name Nemesis.
Weird.
And Beland has just been taking damage off this Ancient Tomb. He's cast 2 spells, so he's at 16.
Yeah, and a natural island draw as well as a Jace the Mind Sculptor here. And Harlan here going to use the plus on Jace to make sure that it survives some attacks or various direct damage over the next few turns.
Yeah, and here is a rules update that happened recently that actually is relevant to Jace the Mind Sculptor versus Mono Red Prison. Fiery Confluence, I think it damages each opponent. In some capacity, it no longer can hit Planeswalkers. It used to be able to.
Sure. I mean, the same thing is true for Chandra Torch of Defiance. Used to be able to use Chandra Torch of Defiance to tick up and kill an opposing Chandra after they tick down on it, but when they changed the Planeswalker damage rule, things happened quite a bit differently. I actually have no idea how this interaction works. Chalice of the Void for X equals 1 versus a Trinisphere. I'm pretty sure it gets a counter. Looks like Beland knows what his cards do.
Yeah. So you're spending 3 mana. You pay X twice, and you just have an extra mana tacked on. It doesn't get like 1.5 counters or anything.
Dude, that would be tight. Just, it counters like a little, or not like a little girl that costs 1/2.
Yeah. I was trying to think. There's a card called Saute that does 3.5. I know like some unhinged cards. I know where you were going. I just don't have the card on me.
Medium girl counters medium.
Fierce going to work. True Name Nemesis just keeps on chunking in. Beland's at 7. Jace the Mind Sculptor is at 11.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Harlan just has removal spells / counter spells wrapped up here. And even though Nicholas Beland had that really punishing turn 2 Trinisphere, looks like Harlan Fear is going to beat it quite easily because there was no real follow-up from Nicholas Beland. And you see here he even goes minus on that Simian Spirit Guide, and that True Name Nemesis keeps chunking in for 3. That's all she wrote.
I don't know if I've ever seen that play before, but it's good enough here. Harlan Fear up to 12-3. We should see him in the top 8 of SCG Syracuse here.
Yeah, but that's not all she wrote for